Nearly 3 years ago today, I departed Nairobi with mountains of data from research with 22 incredible secondary school girls. Beryl, Halima, Shiko, Nancy, Sarah, Wangari, Ada, Damaris, Judy, Julie, Lonnie, Ebony, Linda, Tulu, Tamika. I always butcher, sorry. Jessica, Chipo, Natasha, Shakira, Marie, Thais, and Andrea. I take the time to mention each and every one of their names because far too often, people who conduct research with girls in international development contexts do not acknowledge them. I also say their names because I remain in awe of their contributions to help children around the world who are like them have all the resources that they need to access and be successful in education. But for them to even be enrolled in school was a feat in and of itself. The World Bank extrapolates from data from UNESCO to find that the number of children and youth that are out of school worldwide is a number that's 4 times the population of the UK. That's 263 million. Of this 263 million, the number of girls who are out of school exceeds the population of Japan, standing at 130 million. Shamefully, both of these figures have remained the same for more than a decade. Now, with all these numbers of children out of school, it's surprising to me, but not a shock, that most of these children are located in sub-Saharan Africa, where I conducted this research. From the perspective of being a girl, Plan International has found that there are at least 6 major barriers that keep girls out of school. First and foremost, schools are often not located where these girls live. They're at far distances. Secondly, when girls get home from school, or even sometimes before they go to school, they're responsible for a substantial amount of domestic work. Often, many of their families cannot afford to send them to school, which causes a number of disruptions and delays to their education. They also have to cope with the possibility that they might be forced into an early marriage, and becoming a child bride almost always means that a girl will be removed from school. Unwanted pregnancy, which often happens simply because they did not know how to prevent this pregnancy, is still another factor. And perhaps worst of all, violence, both at home and at school, is the 6th of those major barriers identified by Plan. But still, there are other barriers. One that I hadn't previously been aware of, but was after I started working in Kenya, was the menstrual cycle. UNESCO also found that 1 out of every 10 girls in sub-Saharan Africa misses school whenever they have their period. That's equivalent to about 20% of the academic year, each and every year. Returning to the research that I did with the 22 girls that I named earlier, another barrier, if you can surmount all of those hurdles, is the fact that once you are in school, you don't always have the resources that you need to learn. UNESCO, which has done a lot of work understanding education systems in Africa, found that having access to textbooks can provide substantial impacts, positive impacts, on learning and achievement. When I came together with these girls to co-design the research process that we undertook, we had to come together for a common goal. What were we going to work towards? That goal became to increase their access to educational content after school. Many of the girls that I worked with came from backgrounds of socioeconomic deprivation. They didn't have much money at home, and education within their country was perennially underfunded by the government. Still, parents were being made responsible for basic education provision, which included paying their tuition, paying associated fees for after-school activities, and also for the purchase of their textbooks. At the secondary level in Kenya, you were responsible for attending at least 5 classes for each term. Each of those classes required at least 1 textbook. In December 2013, when this research project began, the cost of a textbook at minimum in Nairobi was 100 Kenyan shillings, which is equivalent to about $1 US. Now that might sound like it's not much to you, but for girls who their family might only earn about $5 a day, that's a huge and substantial portion of their household income. Now, if we think about what could be done to address this, working with these girls, we had to think not only outside of the box, we had to break the rules, but we did it with the government's permission. You see, mobile phones are actually banned in schools in Kenya. And so when I had the idea that we might use a mobile phone to help them increase their access to educational content after school, the government had to sign off on this and agree to my Fulbright research to be conducted in that manner. But I know what you're thinking. Mobile phones? Yes, in Kenya, for those of you who don't know, it's unarguably one of the most technologically advanced societies in sub-Saharan Africa as far as mobile is concerned. Mobile money has become an innovation in the financial service system, within government, to pay for utilities, and even to pay for transportation. Sound familiar? Uber, anyone? Okay. So when we had to think about using mobile phones, it became something that was more feasible because in Kenya, mobile ownership is vital. And in fact, each and every single one of the 22 secondary school girls I worked with own their own mobile phone, often because a family member gave it to them as a gift so that they could maintain contact with them. Now, I know you must think it is absolutely crazy, but our idea was to help these girls access and read textbooks on a phone that is just like this one. This is actually used in the study. You're presented with a choice. Do I have no textbooks at home and usually read nothing when I go home from school? Or do I use a simple device like this to read upwards of 10 textbooks at a cost of 10 shillings, or about US 10 cents or less? If you had that choice, what would you choose? Okay. So when they got access to World Reader, which is the app in this phone, they were able to access more than 6,000 textbooks free of charge. And they read. The girls read poetry. They read recipes that they then used to cook healthy meals for their families. They read stories of adversity from children like them who were then able to go on and succeed in school. And they even read, each and every single girl, a book about how men can wear and dispose of condoms. Here, knowledge was power, and the mobile phone in this case was the vehicle to connect them with books that would otherwise be out of their reach and unaffordable to them. So why does this matter? For me, I'm from the United States, and despite being from the US, my upbringing was very similar to the girls that I worked with. Although Forbes considers the United States to be one of the most rich countries in the world, we all know that there's great inequality even within our borders. By the time I reached high school, I had to deal with my father being a drug addict, my sister, who was a teen mother, my brother, who sold drugs, and coping with the absence of my mother, who worked very long hours just to put food on our table and to provide for us what the government could not. During this time, I had also already lost many friends who had been murdered, many who had dropped out of school, and also friends who just got lured into a life of crime. For me, books became my refuge. You could find me at school reading during physical education, reading when I wasn't supposed to be reading, because to me, books became an escape to think about doing and being something that was not already predestined for me. I also benefited from strong women around me, like my mom, my teachers, and my guidance counselors, who said, you know, Rhonda, if you keep reading and learning and imagining, there's nothing you can't do. You can have that success. And luckily, unlike in Kenya, in the United States, I had access to books at school and at local libraries, despite not having many of them in my own home. But even still, the access that I did have, I think, played a great role in the woman you see standing here before you today. An often stated quote from Nelson Mandela is that education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. I sincerely agree with this statement, as the gentleman who introduced me noted. However, I think we have an opportunity to take Mandela's concept one step further, if only we dare. 22 secondary school girls pushed the boundaries and saw that mobile phones can do more than just connect us with people. They found, together with me, that mobile phones can actually connect you to stories and knowledge that might otherwise be out of reach. Although in education, important measures of success are grades, as well as test scores. In my case, not all of the girls benefited from reading and then increasing their test scores and also increasing their grades. But each and every single girl, by accessing a book on their mobile phone, had an opportunity to learn about the world around them and themselves. Still, the notion that the mobile phone can be used in this manner to help people access more textbooks, while provocative, I think is an idea whose time has come. And I really want to thank the girls that worked with me for pushing a brave new idea that mobiles can be their weapons to change the world through reading. So I'll leave you with one question. How far are we all willing to go to ensure that every single child has access to a quality education for all? Thank you.